A woman can look at a guy and say, I am not attracted to him. 2.5 minutes into the conversation, that guy can become Brad Pitt. If the woman's attracted to you, you can say anything you want.
For this spear mindset hack right there that you just shared.
I think men need to understand the concept of attention. That attention is more important to women than sex is to men.
What helps people build that aura or to build those traits and qualities that make a top type of man?
Having the discipline to deflect that energy and put it towards your mission and goals as a man puts you in a category of the 1% of the 1%.
We're getting to the blueprint of human identity dynamics.
I think the key is to not be controlling, but rather be in control. It comes down to respect, and women need to be with the man that they respect. Men need to be with the woman.
So what is brewing at Into the Wild? I think you've got a unique perspective that not many people have in real face-to-face, like group encounters of people meeting, right? What's the biggest challenge that people are having when they're meeting face-to-face?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because the biggest challenge people are having in their dating endeavors is not meeting face to face, right? When you automate a human connection and you extract the part where you're speaking face to face, when you look at the statistics of the marriage rates being down, birth rates being down, divorce rates being up, it makes sense. I think one of the biggest issues people face is putting themselves in an environment where it's kind of uncharted territory. People are so used to just connecting or attempting to connect with people on a pixelated screen, on an app on your phone. So when you put them in an environment that's considered antiquated, it's very interesting. The nerves are there. But at the end of the day, we sell confidence in the sense that when you talk to 25, 30 beautiful women, regardless of whether you get rejected or not, you have a different mindset at the end of the day. And that fear kind of subsides. So what's interesting is that the women have that same fear too, and I have to kind of break the ice for them. Think about it. There's no events where you're actually vetting and trying to put high quality men and women in the same room with the objective of connecting and cultivating a relationship.
Yeah. So you're the network builder, right? Like you've created this brand called Meet in the Wild.
Meet in the Wild. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're getting people to like understand and get past like the unknown, the fear of like meeting in person. Like, you know, we all kind of think it's easy to date online. I don't know what your take is on that, but I think online dating was great years ago, a decade ago, but today is like complete waste of time and energy for people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And moving here to St. Petersburg, I met a lot of really good men and women that were suffering from the same problem. And it just made no sense, right? If we were teleported into any other generation, it wouldn't, the guys that we know in our circle would never have issues meeting like a good woman that just wants to be in a relationship and respects them. But it's definitely been eye-opening for me. I think the dating market is one of the biggest verticals in the world, right? The three main ones, it's like health, wealth, dating, and relationships. And imagine being in the health industry and you got supplements, you got workouts, you got nutrition, you just got a myriad of different like subcategories within the niche. Imagine you're the only one that's selling nutrition as a whole. That's kind of how I look at Meet in the Wild because there's the dating apps, there's the matchmaking companies, and you would think that there would be events that, you know, had the intention of vetting good quality men and women and putting them in an environment. But I could only hear somebody say, where are you supposed to meet somebody so many times before I had to step up and at least test an idea. I would have never thought that it would have turned into this. This was something I put a couple $100s of ad spend into about 8 months ago. And it's really gotten a lot of traction here. We're expanding to Dallas, Texas at the end of this month in January. So it's really taken on a life of its own. And I think what's surprising to me is that both the men and the women are really struggling with dating apps. And I totally agree. I know a lot of people that have been engaged, that got married, meeting on Hinge and Tinder. But to what you said, Alex, this was 7, 8, 9 years ago. I think the dynamic of dating has definitely shifted. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of it being social media. I think the gender ratio is also very skewed on dating apps where it's twice as many men as there are women. And so that causes the men to just bombard the women with attention. They have no skin in the game. So you normally don't take anything serious that's either free or has a really low cost or barrier to entry. And I think the women just kind of relish in the attention, and they're less inclined to actually put themselves out there and date with intention. So they're trying to get attention, which makes them not date with intention. And so when you put people in the same room and you force them to have a face-to-face encounter, and you kind of lower the barriers and give them permission to talk about the things that they're looking for in their romantic counterpart, steering the conversation to a degree makes things much different. Because if you're going back and forth on dating apps, you got to wait a couple days for the girl to respond. Most of the guys that we know, it's not even worth their time doing it, probably the women too. And then if they actually show up on a date, it's almost like you're operating from a deficit. This is my theory, but I think it's true. That same girl that you reach out to on Hinge, if you met her in person and you approached her, you gain two notches on the scale. I almost feel like women kind of have a prejudice against it from the men if they're even on the apps to begin with. And I think to a certain degree, men feel the same way, because it's like, hey, listen, I also think that the social media and dating apps have kind of distorted people's sense of reality to a degree, right? Where
Yeah.
everybody's replaceable, everybody's automated. And at the end of the day, these are real, genuine people that are good people for the most part, that are looking to date with an intention. And I feel like, when you take that human element of communication out of the encounter, it's not surprising to me why the dating results are abysmal.
So does it even work for some people? There's plenty of courses or, people that talk about, get better or have like incredible results online. And I honestly doubt that there's even any kind of efficacy. I think we all have heard, like, at some party that we've been at, like, oh, you met on Tinder or you met on something. And it's like, I guess it's that one in a full moon or blood moon or crazy event that like never happens, for every 100 years. But it just seems like today's world with AI and everything it's this drive to be in person.
Yeah, you have to. And I think the yearn for a personal connection is only going to get greater as we experience more technological advancements like AI coming out. I mean, some of it's pretty scary. You genuinely can't tell the difference, in the images and the videos that you're seeing. But at the end of the day, I think that it's the mindset that people are conditioned to be replaceable. And when you're on an app and you've been on an app and that's your primary way of getting dates, when you get into a relationship, I think you're less inclined to work through the adversity that surfaces. And the second it does, you're more inclined to be like, oh, let me just hop on the app and sift through another 200 people, right? That's not healthy. We as humans are not designed to have that many options. And I also think when it comes to having options, the dynamic between men and women are a lot different on the dating apps. And I think it's not nearly as favorable to the men. And I understand to a degree why the women have a little bit of a distorted sense of reality. Because if I was 22 years old and I could just take a picture of myself and throw it on the internet and have hundreds and thousands of women fighting for my attention, I would probably have a little bit of a distorted sense of reality too. Where a lot of these guys are really like top 20, top 10% guys. And the way you judge that's not just about money, it's health, it's mindset, it's your values, more importantly, which is what we value at Meet in the Wild, right? But I think it really presents a situation that's not conducive to reality. When you have a guy that's really worked on himself for decades and he's on Tinder or Hinge and he can't even get a message open, much less responded to, that's unfortunately the reality of the world that we're living in today. And there's many reasons for that, but we found that like there's a lot of good men out there that are dating for the right reasons. And much to my surprise, Alex, I would say there's more women that have been interested in Meet in the Wild than men, but they're dealing with another set of problems. They don't understand what it's like to be truly lonely when you have nobody answering you on the other end. That's what men deal with. But with the women, it's hard for them to vet and go through hundreds of men when they're just left to judge them on photos and nothing else, right? So Meet in the Wild really does something different where we can look at a woman and be like, she's not attractive. And that's okay. Sometimes we're attracted to people, sometimes we're not. If I'm not attracted to a woman, I could have every single common interest that she has and I have, and it will not fluctuate the attraction. A woman can look at a guy and say, I am not attracted to him. 2.5 minutes into the conversation, that guy can become Brad Pitt because it's the tonality, it's the way you present yourself, it's your physical aura, it's your energy. Women are very socially calibrated. And so they pick up on a lot of different social cues that factor into the attention. the attraction, I should say. So when you put that guy and girl in a face-to-face setting, the dynamic is radically different compared to if they're messaging on a dating app. Does
How
that
do
make sense?
you, yeah, no, absolutely. How do you teach the men at those events, or what have you learned in the kind of self-development world that helps people build that aura, or to build those traits and qualities that make a top type of man?
Yeah, the it's tough. I think there's a lot of different ways where you can fake it, but the reality is you have to become that man and fulfill your potential. And you get there through endlessly self improving in multiple facets of life. And what we do is, well, I challenge men. I think there are different buckets of success with men. You can have your finances, obviously, your health, your network, your social skills. And I think it's inexcusable for men to just focus on one of those buckets. And we kind of encourage men to be as well rounded as possible, because at the end of the day, you're not doing it for the woman, you're doing it for you. And as long as you have the right mindset and you come in and you've done the work, I think confidence is a byproduct of competence. So there are some one-liners that you can say and you can pretend to be that guy, but at the end of the day, women, it's not going to resonate with women. They're much more socially calibrated than men, and they're going to be able to detect quite quickly if you're actually the guy that you're portraying yourself to be. But in terms of helping them at the event, I think with men, the challenge is that we have adhered to this specific blueprint that has served us in every domain in life for the most part, which is relentless pursuit. So if you want to make more money, right? You work harder, you put in more work, you study harder, you work smart, you work hard, and you get rewarded by that. If you want to get healthy, you go to the gym. The more times you go to the gym, the more times you eat healthy, the better results you're going to attain in a shorter amount of time. And I think men just take that blueprint and channel it to women, where it's like, I just need to, the more I do over here, I'll just text her more, I'll send her more flowers, and then eventually she's just going to cave and fall in love. And it's counterintuitive for a lot of guys, because I think women is the one area in life where less is actually more. And it's hard to kind of not adhere to that blueprint that has served you in every other important area of life as a man, and kind of detach yourself for it, look objectively and say, less is more. I need to kind of have my mind take precedence over my emotions, because it's hard sometimes, right? Some of the guys get excited, you have all these beautiful girls there, you want to talk to them, you want to express yourself, but you have to kind of give them the space to have their emotions and thoughts develop and come to you at their time.
Mm. So if somebody's trying to, express themselves, and they're working through uh, these different systems of energies, like, is there a place that you set your mind, or a perspective that you have that helps you calm your nerves, or like, what's the mindset look like, or anything that you've actually like used yourself or teach that people can maybe find like applicable?
Yeah, and are you talking mostly from the man's vantage point, the woman's vantage
Let's do the
point,
man's
or
vantage
both?
point, and then I'd love to
Yeah.
actually ask for the woman's perspective as well, if you have any there.
Of course, yeah. I think the one thing a man can do is actually know his value. And what I mean by that is your value based on where you stand as a man. I think a lot of men have no idea what it is. And I think a lot of women have an advantage by not informing them. The reality, Alex, and I want to preface this, it's not just about money, but you know, I think it's okay to acknowledge basic biological facts, where women are looking for a guy that can protect, provision, provide security. The average median income for a man in America is like $43,000 a year. So, just off that alone, most guys that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, if they just factor that in where they stand with their health, their body weight, their body fat percentage, and their income, guys that probably think they're a top 60% man is actually a top 10% man. When you compare it to the statistics on the US Census Bureau, there are several sites that do this. Understanding your value will give you a necessary paradigm shift, where it's not about competing with other men, it's just understanding the social dynamics, that there are probably more of these women than there are of the men by a great degree. So again, Not saying that one gender is better than the other. I'm saying that diamonds are more valuable than gold because there's less of them. And it's just that simple. That's a great starting point because what that can do, it can give you the paradigm shift of, I don't need to qualify to you. I've put in the work as a man. I'm unapologetic of the goals that I have and what I'm searching for. So I need you to qualify to me. What's interesting about this dynamic is that's actually what the women want. They're actually sick of the men trying to qualify themselves to them. How is a woman going to look up to a man if he puts her on a pedestal? Right? So I think like kind of training the men instead of thinking about what you're going to say, just be comfortable of who you are and what you've done up to this point. Because if you're in the room of meeting the wild, you're a top 15-20% guy. You've put in the work. And I think a lot of the women misconstrue top 2% guys as average because, you know, the dating market has been globalized because of Instagram, and any man at any time can just send your girl a message from anywhere in the world. And there's nothing normal about that whatsoever. So, again, I think the women have a little bit of a distorted sense of reality, but the men do too. In terms of the women, they get a little nervous in the sense of, hey, these guys are vetted, they're high quality men. They're looking to date with the right intention. Their time is valuable. You're probably not going to see them on the dating apps. All of a sudden the women get a little bit of apprehension because it's like, oh, wait, like I'm looking for a relationship now. This is much different than scrolling through your DMs, trying to go through all the men that want to give you free attention. It's kind of like I always use this analogy. It's like guys going to a strip club. We appreciate the beauty, but we really don't respect it and probably won't be in a monogamous relationship with you anytime soon. And if you choose to do that, I'm not judging you. But I think the counter perspective for women is that they appreciate all the men that like, comment, blow their social media up, but they don't necessarily respect it, and they actually want the guy that isn't going to do that. They want the guy who puts himself and his mission first, and they never want to be above that, despite it's politically incorrect to say most women won't admit that, but some of them actually do. But they have nerves because they haven't been in an environment where you have a bunch of high quality men that have put in the work that are viable options for being in a relationship, potentially marriage, and check off all the boxes that they're looking for. Because if you go and treat one of those guys the way you maybe did your ex, it's going to be a different dynamic. And so it forces the women to level up and really get on the guy's plan and understand what he's looking for in a relationship. And it's just like anything else. If you're going to become a stay-at-home husband or a stay-at-home wife, those are skills that need to be cultivated. And if a woman has the advantage of just sitting back and having all the men reach out to them qualified, they've never been in a situation where the dynamic's been reversed.
So it's almost the reverse sell in a way. And then instead of the guy qualifying himself, you're recognizing that, you're coming from a place of your accomplishments, your commitments, your sense of independence and strength being the prize in a way, and essentially letting the other person, the girl, inviting her in a way to qualify herself. And by doing that, then you're the one evaluating, do you want this or not? Do you like this girl? What is it that you do like it about it? What are the pros and cons? Versus in the other context, right? Then it's reversed. Then you're the one chasing her and she's judging you and evaluating you and what your pros and cons are.
100%. You absolutely nailed it. And it's tough because I think a lot of times women respond to what they don't necessarily like. What they don't like makes them respond. And what they do like, oftentimes they don't respond to.
So
Right.
how
So
do they reconcile that? Because I think that is, as we're all leveling up and more people are accessing knowledge, and I think we're getting to the blueprint of human identity dynamics and our
yeah,
primal reactions, right? I think there's so much neuroscience that people understand today, and we're all TikToking and finding the great video sources like this. What's the best
right.
source of information? But do you overcome the primal reactions with knowledge? Like, how do girls reconcile? They react to things they don't like, but they say they like something else.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to change that one. I had a theory that men didn't understand women. And now my theory is almost to the point where women don't understand women. So I'm not sure if we can get them to change their own biology because they're emotional creatures. They're much more emotional than us. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that at all. I think it's incumbent on the man to do the work and understand the woman because no woman wants to go up to a man and tell him how to be a man. Right? The same way no guy wants to teach a woman how to be a lady either. But men need to be cognizant of this fact because if you don't optimize this area of your life, like it's a big area of your life, especially if you're one of these guys who's put in decades of work, got his money right, got his health right. He really wants to share that with a life partner. And then obviously, the paternal instincts kick in. He wants to leave a legacy, build a family. And, I think it's one of the most important choices that you can make as a man. And one of the most costly ones, too, if you don't make the right decision. Why wouldn't you study this area of life? Like you're going to study health, you're going to study finance. If you just leave this on a whim, like the consequences are pretty dire, especially in the world that we're living in today, right? Where it's very, 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 very competitive out there. And so I'm not sure if the women can. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it can't be possible, but I think men need to understand women. They need to understand what they respond to, and they need to understand the biological differences between men and women. And I think it's one set of skills to be able to initially attain the woman. But just like you make money, you keep money. They're two different skills. Attain and retain are two different skills, and you need to understand what they respond to. But I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give men is just continue to self improve because at the end of the day, the way you present yourself is going to be a culmination of your skills, which is nothing but a byproduct of the work and self improvement that you've put into yourself over an extended period of time. And I know that that's not the sexy answer, but at the end of the day, there's no one trick, there's no one line, there's no one shift in tonality that can overcome decades and years of putting in the work in the right areas. And I think
Yeah.
women, like I said, are a lot more socially calibrated than men. They can sense it pretty quickly if a guy's actually the man that he's presenting himself to be.
So we talked, there's a lot of self-development that we just unpacked for men. What are the things that
Mhm.
women are doing? What are the resources available or in the meat, in the wild? How are women reviewing their playbook, reviewing their traits, or improving themselves in a way?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to just being transparent with the women because a lot of this information has been suppressed and you just can't state biological facts and differences between men and women without risking offending them. But I found through the podcast that a lot of times with women, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And your tonality, like I think, just communication in general, it's like 7% verbal. And then obviously your tonality and your body language account for the other 93%. And I really understood that um, when talking to women on the podcast. And as long as you can say it in a way where they sense that you're genuinely trying to help them and you're not trying to demean them, I think that the women need to understand that attraction is not symmetrical between men and women. I think there has been a narrative sold to women that if you want a man that is, wealthy, has audacious goals, is unapologetic, is strong, if the woman becomes those things, that will naturally attract that type of man. And as a result, I've seen that a lot of women have become the type of man they want to marry. They actually inherit those skills. And in this country, if you want to get ahead, if you want to make several $100,000 a year, it's very competitive and you need to inherit masculine traits to a degree. But if I took what I just said and flipped it and I said, Alex, I'm looking for a soft, sweet, nurturing woman. So I think I should become a soft, sweet, nurturing man. I don't think that that strategy is going to work out very well for me, right? Because attraction isn't symmetrical. And the women need to understand that, oh, you have a great career. That's incredible. Like, good for you. The number on your W 2 probably isn't going to impact my level of attraction for you. And just being candid about that. Men are attracted to more feminine traits. Are you kind? Are you friendly? Do you have a nice demeanor? Do you have values? Right? If I date you, are you going to be friends with seven of your ex boyfriends and talk to them every day? a guy at a certain level isn't going to want to deal with it. And if he is, kudos to him, right? I'm not judging anybody, but I think with women, it's more about their inherent traits and values opposed to the things that they can create and provide. And a lot of women have a tough time with that because they'll go to school, they'll get all these degrees, and they basically live the blueprint of an aspiring CEO. And then they get there and they're like, how come I'm single still? And it's like, well, you might be single because there's no masculine and feminine polarity in the relationship. There needs to be polarity. There needs to be a yin and there needs to be a yang. And even at the surface level, I get that it looks great, these power couple dynamics, and some couples can make them work and more power to them. But if a guy's slaying the dragon and he's working 90, 100 hours a week and he has a ton of stress and his whole company's riding on him and everybody looks to him for opportunities and to be fed, when he comes home, he probably wants to be greeted with feminine energy and somebody that's nurturing and somebody who, I think if the guy's mission is his mission and the woman's mission is the man, in my opinion, it's politically incorrect, but I think that those are the best relationships. And I know several of them that fall in that realm. Not to say that two people with flourishing careers that are really busy can't work, but I think there needs to be a masculine and a feminine. And perhaps maybe the feminine, the female can be the masculine and the masculine, the man can be the feminine. Regardless, that polarity needs to be there, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. What is it? What's your take on marriages? And this might be another sensitive, politically
Oh, yeah.
correct topic, but I think we're in an era where there's been lower fertility rates. I can't tell you. I think like every other day, I keep seeing Elon Musk post about there are not enough babies,
Yeah.
and it's like the implosion of society. And
No,
then we
it's
have
scary. It's actually happening. Yeah, it's a problem.
yeah, so you have that, and then compounded with the rise of like divorces and marriage. What's your take of how has it worked out successfully, and what are I guess like the what's like the 2025 playbook, if you will, of exploring marriage and making that commitment and how to do it appropriately and successfully?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I truly believe in the sanctity of marriage. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a tested and proven concept. If you look at all the statistics, in terms of raising children, the statistics of children when they're raised in a two-parent household compared to one, I think marriage is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with the way that it's structured and how the government can intervene in the current laws of marriage. I would advise a man to get married in the church. You can get married in the church without getting the certificate and not subjecting yourself to half of your assets. And I get that. It's like, we'll get a prenup. Well, those can also be thrown away at a judge's discretion, right? So I think it ultimately comes down to becoming the best version of yourself. And I think guys also know whether the girl truly wants to marry them or not. Like, dude, if your girl's not going to marry you unless there's a prenup with a prenup, I think she's basically telling you everything that you need to know. And one analogy that I would always use for marriage is at the end of the day, it's two people in love. But sometimes, as men, when your assets are on the line, you need to make sound, objective business decisions. If me and you were to partner in a business and I said, hey, listen, let's partner 50-50 at any time, regardless of anything I do. I could be the worst worker. I could be the best person. Be the first one there, early, last one to leave, or I could just do nothing. Regardless, I can leave at any time, and when I do, I can basically take your half of the company with me. I don't think anybody would sign up to that business deal, but that essentially is what marriage is. I also think there's a biological need for men because at the end of the day, 85% of men who get divorced remarry within the next 5 years. So I think there's this social conditioning on how men correlate marriage to how others deem them, whether they're successful or not, or whether they get approval from their friends and family. I don't know if there's another plausible explanation other than that if you look at the statistics. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you should go into marriage with the goal of only being married once. If you take vows under God in front of your friends and your family, through thick and thin, sick and poor, you're not going to leave this person. To me, yeah, I don't really view it as an option to then break those vows that you just said in front of God, your friends, and your family. So get married once, and you don't necessarily have to do it through the court system. I would advise not to, because if a woman is happy to marry you in the church, I mean, doesn't that really tell you everything that you need to know? You also want to find a wife that wants a marriage and not a wedding. Want the marriage and not a wedding. These big blowout weddings, again, I think a lot of guys are notorious for ignoring basic red flags that basically tell you everything you need to know about the trajectory of this marriage and where it's going. And unfortunately, through no fault divorce, the guy can do everything right and the woman can just at any time leave him. And I also think there's a concept of leverage. If you're giving somebody leverage that they haven't earned in a relationship, I think it alters the dynamic of the relationship. Like if you're engaged and you're a really successful guy and you're with this girl, you've been with her for a few years, things are going great, and then you get married and there's no prenup, your money is now our money. And when it's her money too, all of a sudden that can deter the quality of the relationship. And I think that leverage can lead to people acting in a way that's not authentic to them because the dynamic has been completely changed. And so you need to be aware of these factors before diving into a marriage. And I also think that we don't have enough resources, there aren't enough educational components out there to really help men understand what they're getting into when they go to the altar. It's abundantly clear to me when you look at the statistics, most men don't even have a clue what they're signing up for, and they don't even understand the process of divorce until they're in the court proceedings. And they're like, holy shit, how did we get here? You got there by flipping a coin, my friend, because one out of every two end up there. And I think
That's
it really
crazy.
ties in.
That's crazy
No, it's
statistics.
crazy. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, again, if you apply this to any other life endeavor, it absolutely makes no sense. If there was a 1 out of 2 chance that if you got in your car, you were going to crash, you wouldn't get in your car. If there was a 1 or 2 chance that the balcony was going to collapse if you went on it, you wouldn't go on the balcony. But I think there's this biological need for men. And I'm going to tie this into Meet in the Wild because a lot of people don't know this. I think 70 cents on the dollar is, reimbursed from the federal level to the state. That is how, like, the judicial system is essentially paid, right? It's the divorce, it's the alimony, and it keeps happening
Oh
over
yeah,
and over and
attorneys
over
are
again.
getting their cut of the pie for sure.
Oh yeah, and then every month there's a new celebrity headline where some guy owes some girl $800,000 a month in child support. Like, what ailments and diseases do your kid have, right? And then you don't even have to track the expenses to make the court realize that you're actually spending it on the child. The harsh reality is that woman is most likely taking that money with her new man and having nice vacations with him with your kid. And that's a really dangerous place to be in if you're a guy, especially if you haven't mentally prepared for that being an option. Women are hypergamous too. We can't pretend like that's not true. The vast majority of women, they're not going to end a relationship so they can be on their own to start a new self-improvement journey where they're just by their lonesome. Listen, it's like that's not how women operate. And here's the thing, that's okay. And I think one of the biggest roadblocks that men have is understanding and accepting female nature for what it is. Because if you get bitter over it, it's like getting mad at a dog for barking. You can't control how women act, but you can control how you act. And at the end of the day, if you optimize this area of your life, you're not going to find yourself in those types of positions. And this doesn't require six-figure checks to go to college and whatnot. You just need to be aware of basic biological facts. And it's less about what more you need to do and more about what less you need to do.
You know, I think this all kind of has evolved over time. I think the marriage complex has been respected and revered more when times were harder, when we were, hunters and gatherers, when we were, societies that have in the past evolved, and the commitments that you'd make in that kind of sacred vow in your tribe, in your village, we're now sustaining and supporting, this system now with this emergence of incredible multiplied attention that women can get from all directions. Not only all day are women just approached nonstop by men, right? Just as they go out and about, but also infinitely more online. And there's so much access. And so that attention vehicle where even for guys, if you were getting all this attention from all these super hot girls from like every single direction, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm the hottest thing in the world. I've got all these options. Nobody can tell me no, because I could just go here. And so you have this, like, it's like this weird emergence of like an ancient time, a sacred vow and a pact of getting married. And now this modern world where we have so much choice of options, futuristic demand on our attention, right? Attention's going everywhere for men and women. We all have so much more comfort than we never had before. And what this is like, I think it's really evolved almost like, what is marriage going to look like for humans, for people 50 years from now? And we have the rise of AI. We got AI androids. I'm starting to see people working on the robotic that are in female form. Like, welcome strip clubs. You're going to have Star Wars strip clubs popping up here soon.
I 100% agree. And I don't know if you've seen what like Sora just dropped from OpenAI. It's a text to video prompt. So sooner than later, you're going to be able to type in whatever you want and create your own little fantasy. It's not going in a good direction. It's really, really not. And so I think that's already a problem in our society. But you said something that really resonated with me. I think men need to understand the concept of attention. And when it comes to attention, if I'm dating a girl that I really, really like, I mean, I appreciate when she puts an effort with me, but I don't need her blowing up my phone all day. I don't, right? I make it abundantly clear. Like, I like when you put an effort, but don't be clingy and don't blow my phone up all day because I have shit to do, right? Very simple concept. In reverse, I don't think men understand just how important attention is to women. I would go on the record and say that attention is more important to women than sex is to men. They don't understand it. They need attention. And the attention that is being fulfilled by men on apps like Instagram, which is the biggest dating app in the world, is Instagram. Let's get that out of the way. It 100% is. The likes, the comments, the DMs, like when you have a woman that is comfortable garnering attention and male validation from other men, men need to understand that's a very slippery slope, right? Because that attention is going to impact her in a much different way than it's going to impact you. Not to say that women shouldn't be allowed to talk to men, but I think the intention of the men that they do talk to really comes down to whether she respects you as a man or not. And women need to respect you in a relationship. They can love you with all their heart. And if they don't respect you, they're going to cheat on you. It's the unfortunate reality of the situation. That same girl can be in a new relationship and look up and respect to her new man, and she will never look another man's way. So when you see that girls out here in relationships are on every app under the sun, and then they're getting, getting just cluttered with attention from all these men, getting bombarded with DMs, I'm not going to say it's the same thing as a man stepping out and having sexual access to other women, but you need to understand the concept of attention. You need to understand how important it is to women. And if you take your eye off it and just let her get attention from all these different men out here, it's going to deter the quality of the relationship, and it's disrespectful to men. And I think a lot of women don't even understand that concept. And most men have absolutely no idea. Again, this comes down to understanding the biological differences between men and women, and we're both attracted to different things. And despite society has tried to convince us that we're all attracted to the same things, it's far from the truth.
Yeah. When you said the bar that you just said is attention is more valuable to women than it is sex to men. That's pretty profound. And
no, it is.
It makes me wonder. It's kind of like the desire that we have within us to accomplish things. For women, I think desire can act in a way of being desired, and that attention kind of is almost like the fuel for feeling desired, right? So if you have all this attention coming at you, you have all this wanting, these eyeballs, this kind of direction energy. For a man, when you have your willpower to kind of go conquest something, you also have this desire that you're trying to kind of feel. You're the feeling part, and then you're also trying to will something into existence. You're acting, you're doing things. So it's fascinating that you say in that way, how powerful attention can be to call out the desire in a woman and to almost be comparative to the exploitation or like the outcome or like the acquisition from a man for sex. Like, you know, for men, it's like we're logical. We try to think very like we in text messages we'll be like very specific, like we'll say things like, you know, we'll be very forthright or saying like trying to over communicate maybe just to be like, hey bro, like, you know, I just want to make sure we have all the details finally pointed,
Yeah.
right? But then with
Yeah.
women it's kind of the reverse. Like you're not supposed to um be so logical. It's almost like it's too weird. It's weird if you come off too logical because then it's almost like you're working. You're at work and in business communication. So it's fascinating that those are like two different modes of mind and how that layers between attention for women. And is that really on par or counterweighted to sex with men?
Yeah, let me give you an example. So, say you're on a date with a woman and you're really hitting it off, and you're like, man, we're connecting at levels that, you know, I normally don't connect at. We're laughing, we're vibing, she's beautiful. I could see myself with this girl. And then you know how guys think.
Mm-hmm.
Guys jump the gun a little bit. Most guys, they're thinking about the names of the fucking kids and everything on date one. It's like, slow down, bro. You don't know this girl yet. But then imagine the dynamic shifts when she's just like, "Let's get out of here and hook up. Let's go fuck," right? And part of my language, I don't mean to swear, but like at the end of the day, when that happens to me personally, I'm almost like, "Oh man, that's unfortunate. Like I thought you were kind of a good girl, and 30 minutes in, you just want to like take the show on the road." That's okay though. I appreciate it, right? We all know those girls. I think men have no problem pursuing a woman that he really likes and understanding that, you know, you're going to have to court her to a degree, or at least that's how it used to be, not so much anymore. And then eventually the sex will come. If that girl gives up her body too quickly, now you risk the man not respecting her. And if the man doesn't respect the woman, it alters the dynamic and things go south. I say this because here is that same situation in reverse for women. A woman meets a man at Meet in the Wild on a Saturday night, has an amazing connection. On Sunday, he's texting her 47 times. He's opening up his calendar, voice notes, wants to FaceTime, giving away all of his attention for free without her earning it at all. That woman is going to look at that man the same way that man is going to look at that woman for giving her body up too quick. And that is the trap that most men are falling in because they've been rewarded by this blueprint of relentless pursuit and every other theater of life. So it's logical, like you just said, to apply that same blueprint to women. And then they get really frustrated when it doesn't work out because less is actually more, right? And then they go and a lot of guys too, they don't take complete responsibility and ownership for all their failures. And if you adhere to that mindset, it's very, very likely that you're going to look at your behavior and understand that something's wrong because you're not getting the result that you want time after time again. And then at some point, it's incumbent on the man to just do some basic research to try to get this area of his life fixed. But when I talk about the sex and attention dynamic, I think men truly underestimate how bad that can alter the connection in a really negative way out of the gate. And to be candid with you, Alex, I want to be straight about this. If it were up to me, I would just go up to a woman and say, "Hey, listen, I think you're absolutely beautiful. Let's go to a steak dinner tonight, and I'm going to pick you up with a bouquet of roses at your front porch." I think we both know if I did that, I'm probably going to end up getting laughed at in a girls' group chat later that night. Right? That's that's the unflattering truth of modern day dating.
And
So
why
what
is
do you
that?
do? Well,
Because of why?
I think women have been fed this narrative that if men can sleep around and date, then women should be able to as well. And unfortunately, it's led to women serial dating. Unfortunately, it's led to women being more vain and chasing guys for different reasons. It's less about provision, protection, security, family, and it's more about likes, Instagram, blue checks, and yachts. And those are two completely different dynamics. Now, that's not to say it's all women, but there's definitely been a shift. And I also think, from a man's perspective, if the woman is acting in a way that's lower value, why are you going to go out of your way and court her? I think women women know at the end of the day the quality of woman that they are. And if a guy comes out on the first meet and tries to court her and is chivalrous, she might at a subconscious level know that she probably doesn't deserve that treatment. And that's why she doesn't react well to it. I think if you know, go out with a good woman, she's going to respond in a decent way to the courtship. I think a woman who is out here dating for the wrong reasons and maybe has a little bit of a tumultuous past, women aren't designed to have, a certain number of sex partners. It starts to impair their ability to pair bond with the man, and that's not necessarily going to affect the man the same way. You know what I mean?
So pair bonding, that is a very very delicate type of topic, right? I think there's some women and proponents of the free sex movement, and that's an
Mhm.
interesting stance or an interesting perspective that more sex partners for women leads to a difficulty in pair bonding. But does the same happen for men?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And I think it's because women are more emotional creatures. And I'm not, listen, I want to preface this by saying I don't condone cheating. I condone honesty in relationships. But a man has the ability to cheat on a woman and then come back and take a bullet for her, and his love and feelings for her don't fluctuate at all. Men have the ability to do that. I'm not saying they should, but theoretically a guy can go to Vegas with his buddies, have sex with a woman, have no feelings for her, come back and have the same amount of love for his girlfriend or wife. In reverse, if a woman cheats, there was an emotional component involved in that connection. She actually liked the man. And that's the difference why it's completely unforgivable, because the relationship has to end because her emotions have developed for another man. And I wouldn't advise any man putting himself in that situation. Now, I think when it comes, there are statistics that say, I think if you have less than 10 sexual partners as a woman, I think the odds of marriage, I want to say, is like 75 to 80%. After 10, it drastically drops to like 30, 20%. Like, there have been studies around this, and you probably haven't seen them on the internet because they've been suppressed and censored. But at the end of the day, like, this isn't about saying one gender's better than the other. I think as men, we have the ability to have unattached, emotionless sex. And I think most women don't. But when you hit a certain threshold, you do. And when a woman's able to have no strings attached sex, it means that she's had a lot of sexual experiences, and her ability to pair bond is kind of become immune to the relationship. And that's a pretty dangerous place to be, because a good woman, if she is having sexual encounters with somebody that she really likes in a relationship, she's going to fight tooth and nail to make that relationship work. And so if you end up sleeping with the girl and then you don't hear from her again, it's a really decent sign that she has a high body count. Because if she didn't, she wouldn't let that happen, and she would contact you and fight tooth and nail to try to make the relationship work. And so, yeah, I think there are just basic biological differences between men and women, and sexual access is one of them. Also, it takes men a lot longer to be able to build themselves in society. Women can just be 18 years old, look pretty, and have all of the options that they want from male counterparts. Whereas men, it takes a long time to build yourself, your career. Women are very vocal that they want men that are strong minded, strong willed, financially secure, and dating for the right reasons. And you don't just wake up there as a man, you have to build yourself. And so maybe for a man, it takes him to get to his mid to late 30s before he starts getting the same amount of options as that woman did at 19, 20 years old, right? So that difference in dynamic, the women are like, hey, man, how come, what are you, a little boy? How come you're not willing to settle down? And it's like, well, pump the brakes. Like, I put in the work, and now I'm in a position of leverage where I have my options. And then of course the guy thinks that, having a roster of women and serial dating is what's going to make them most fulfilled. And I think most men have to get to that point to realize that that's not all as cracked up as it used to be either. Right. I think there are fallacies on both sides of the aisle. And I think it's okay to have civil discourse and open up productive conversations with men and women and tell them what we're looking for, and listen to what they're looking for. And that's why I did a dating podcast. It was more of a soundboard and a market research project to really understand what these women are dealing with, because we found that a lot of women want relationships. They want to be with one guy. The problem is they want to be with the guy that makes money, the guy that's in shape, and the guy that's charismatic. And that has to be 3 guys, unfortunately, in most cases. So we're telling men, if you just put in the work, if you take a holistic approach to self-improvement, like, these women are waiting for a guy that's all encompassing and well-rounded. And if you are that guy, you do really, really well out here, because it's never been there has never been an easier time for men to win. You can live the life of a celebrity if you're just basically willing to hit the gym, work on yourself, self expression and communication, which are topics that you're really great and this podcast is centered around. That is a huge one with women. But if you're not putting in the work to self improve as a man, yeah, you're not going to be deemed as a valuable option. And that might be unfair considering in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, every average guy had a wife, 2 cars, a white picket fence, a couple kids, and a nice house. A lot of things have changed from that. It really is all about how you look at the situation. For me, it's like, you got to do the bare minimum and you can live the life as a celebrity. It's a no-brainer to me. Just get any guy can get in the top 15 to 20% of men, right? Any guy can. It's just about maximizing what you do have. But I think the key is to do it for yourself and not do it for the woman. Because if you're doing it for the woman, the second you get in a quality relationship, all of your hobbies, all of your self improvement journey is going to go to the wayside. And that's something that the women have been very vocal about, that they don't like about men. They'll end up dating a guy because he has a bunch of hobbies. He's well connected. He has a side hustle. He's doing all these things. And then after the 30-day mark, when they're in the honeymoon phase, he slowly starts reverting back to his old ways and gradually dropping all the things that he did to make himself look attractive in the first place. That's not fair to the woman. I understand why the women leave men in that situation, right? So I kind of take an objective look at both sides. Meet in the Wild is interesting because my girlfriend Gloria, she's like, "Oh my god, I never knew women could act like this," and I'm over here being like, "I never knew men could act like this." So we're getting honest perspective on our own gender based on the success stories or lack thereof from our event. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, the firsthand being in person, the qualitative data that you're experiencing through the conversations and the quantitative, like the actual statistics of how many people after the
Yeah.
event, report,
Yes.
based on a score, and how many of those actually turn into relationships, how long did those turn into. I mean, you've got an amazing, rich perspective on this. Like, there's so much that you've unpacked. If I could go back to the pair bonding, there's a really interesting point that I want to clarify from my experiences. I think men and women are emotional. I think men have emotions, women have emotions. What you said, which I hit the nail on the head, which is 100% correct from my understanding, is that women, when having sex, it's really difficult. To your point, maybe there's a point of number of partners that they can not feel emotionally connected and feel like, wow, this is a guy that I was going to maybe get wedded to. If you go back in time, women were meant to be virgins for most of their life. And it's upon being sold, typically by the father, right? Or being offered in exchange for some familial connection, that then they're breaking their virginity, they're finding a partner, and then they're being wed that way. And today we have the men's situation where you said men can have sex and not be emotionally attached. I still think that there's maybe an argument, though, that I think men can have that sexual impromptu kind of in the moment experience. I think if you're a man, but you're like having multiple relationships or like building connections with multiple girls, I don't think that that's like sustainable. I think you also are going to emotionally feel kind of cross-tied or cross-wired. It's just as much as women, but it's the difficulty for women that they can't just have the impromptu sex in the moment and not feel emotionally attached. For a man, I think that they can from that side. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. It does, and it's definitely a nuanced topic for sure. I think I agree. I think it really comes down to the extremes and what we're capable of as men and women. Is a man capable of truly, genuinely loving more than one woman? I think he's capable of that. Is a woman capable of truly being in love, respecting, and admiring more than one man? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, back to your point, I think it's much more efficient and viable for a man to focus on one woman and focus on the qualities of that woman and whether she is going to be an asset to his life. And I also think men need to be cognizant of the fact that, you're probably not going to be able to just buy your house out here. You probably need to buy the land first and then build the house. And the analogy there is you need to guide that woman sometimes. You have to be cognizant of the fact that in America, there's a lot of craziness happening right now in modern day dating. And think about back when I was 22 years old. Like, I wasn't making good decisions. And if all of my friends and my family and society was telling me to act this way, it's really difficult to see through the clutter and the rhetoric and actually seek out the right information and be willing to stand on the other side of the aisle, even if you're standing just by yourself, right? So there are challenges for women too. But I think with men, if they focus their efforts on actually making sure that that woman that they have feelings for understands what they're looking for and guiding them, right? Like, I use guide, it's not grooming. There's nothing inherently wrong with bettering a woman's life and helping her mindset and helping her understand what we're looking for as men. I think men need to be more vocal and transparent about that. And there's this notion where you can't be, or else you're, you know, risking whatever Me Too movement. It's like, no, you can be honest and transparent and bold about what you're looking for in a relationship, but you have to lay those boundaries down in the beginning. You can't wait 4 months in to be like, oh, this is a boundary that you got crossed. And the thing is, I used to think that there was a risk to laying down boundaries. Women actually respect men more for doing it. All of these things that men have trepidation on are actually things that are going to work in their favor. They just need to get to that point to realize it, right? It's much better to have one woman who truly looks up to you, admires, and respects you than it is to have 4 or 5 different women that you're serial dating that, don't check off those boxes. And I think as men, you can be honest with women and you'd be surprised what some of them down here will let you get away with, right? Like, it's about getting through that opening dating phase and really just bringing her into your world and letting her know that it's a privilege to be part of it. I think that's what women are looking for. And far too often, men are taking the opposite approach where they're the ones just chasing endlessly. And at the end of the day, if you treat a woman like a celebrity, she's going to treat you like a fan. That's just the dynamic of the dating culture. And it's incumbent on the man to understand it's really women are emotion. I used to think that like men are emotional too. I used to think it was maybe 40, 60, 60, 40. I'm starting to think most women, it's like 97% emotional, not to the point where it clouds their ability to be objective, but her emotions are everything. And as a man, you need to get her to feel something. And this is what's crazy. You can be a millionaire, have a yacht, a mansion, be well connected. But if you can't get her to feel anything, you're going to lose that girl and you're going to lose her to a guy that doesn't have a fraction of the things that you have. So I think women don't get enough credit. It's really about the connection and how you make her feel. I would say that's more important than all of the other tangible things that men are looking to attain at the surface level, especially when they're just trying to get them to appeal to the woman anyway. It's about who you are as a man. It's about your communication. It's about your aura. Like, it's about the way you make them feel. If they feel something for you, that a woman will never leave if you can make her feel right, and being able to swing her emotions in an ethical way, of course, right, is going to give you an advantage. You need to know the social calibration of women and how to get through to them as a man. Another analogy I'll use, if there's a UFC fight and you're fighting John Jones, you're not just going to go in there and swing angry haymakers. You need to have a game plan, right? And you need to have a game plan in this modern day dating culture that we're all trying to survive in. And if you are one of the few men who put into work and understand the psychology of women, you are going to stick out like a sore thumb and it's going to give you the ultimate advantage because all the other guys are going to be making the same trivial mistakes over and over and over again. And again, it's about what not to do rather than all these things you need to learn to do. And it really comes down to making your attention congruent with her effort. The same way a woman is going to reward men for acting the right way, men need to reward women with their attention for putting in effort. You don't want to be put in a situation where the first 3 dates you took her to 3 beautiful steakhouses. Now you're $800 in the hole because men want to get a return on their investment because we're logical, objective creatures. But if you're looking to get a return on your investment, that's going to make you vulnerable because you're much more likely to ignore red flags and tolerate behavior that you wouldn't if you weren't too invested out of the gate. So it's not about being cheap or frugal. It's like, no, dude, a great first date idea, walk in the park in St. Pete, and then we'll take it from there. If she shows up, it means she actually likes you. If she says, well, what, walk in the park on a first date question mark, dude, you're saving yourself a headache. Like, it's a good way to vet to make sure that you're attracting the highest quality women. And that is why Meet in the Wild, I think, has gotten so much traction, because we're essentially doing that vetting process for you. We're taking care of the communications to get them show up for you. So if you don't have to talk to them and you don't have to get them to show up, you just have to show up. That gives the guys a lot of an advantage going into the event compared to their experiences on dating apps. I mean, think of the amount of time it would take for a guy at a certain level to get 25 to 30 women to show up with the right intentions, looking for a relationship that fit sort of the physical beauty standards that the guys have set. It's truly something that nobody else is offering in a domain that is so important. This problem is affecting so many people across the board. It doesn't matter your race, your social status. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Every single person is been affected by modern day dating culture at some juncture of their life, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you got modern speed dating in a really great container that you put together. When people are there and meeting, how what's like a 1, 2, 3 punch system that you can walk through what it means to communicate more with body language, right? You mentioned earlier, and this is a topic I think that's brought up, is like communicating with your body language and your tonality and your eye contact is like 90%, 70%. It's like the majority of communication, not what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it. So if you had to try to translate that into I don't know, like a step-by-step, or can you offer any advice for someone that's listening that's maybe asking themselves, like, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really comes down to how you say it. And the first thing you can do as a man is just, pace a little slower with your words. If you're talking too fast, it almost comes across like you're excited and you're anxious. Like, be relaxed, sit back, slow down your verbal just a little bit. The other thing I would say is make eye contact with the women at all times, right? That sort of exudes a masculine presence. But again, this really comes down to, have you put yourself in a position to be confident in those situations, right? It may be a little nerve wracking for the guy, but slowing down your pace of words, establishing eye contact, instead of sitting across from her in an interview style, slide your chair up next to her. That's a good one too. And if there's any awkward pauses or moments, that's like one of the things that the guys kind of get concerned about going in. Ask her questions, because trust me, she'll love to talk about herself. Like, hey, so tell me what you do. Oh, wow. I don't think people know how hard it is to do that profession. There's your 5 minutes right there. She'll talk about it for the next 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Ask about her passions. Ask about her family. Do you have any sisters? Are you close with them? What's your relationship like with your father? That's also a pretty good question that will, you know, uh, depending on the answers of it, not saying that you can't be a good woman if you don't have a good relationship with your father. But again, that's something that is really important to men. And if there's no masculine leader in that girl's life, again, not saying she can't curate her own experiences and, learn about it through self improvement. But in most cases, that can definitely impact a woman's intentions when it comes to dating. The other thing I would say too is just not ask so many questions in terms of next step. Hey, would you mind if I had your phone number? Hey, this was a great chat. You're cute. I'm not completely sold on you yet, but give me your number, right? Don't be like, women want to know that you're not intimidated by their beauty. They do. And if you understand your value as a guy, you should never acquiesce to something that she's inherently born with. And I'm not saying that a woman's value is all in her beauty. That's not what I'm saying. But as men, we're physical creatures, and the beauty aesthetic is up on the list. I would say it's a prerequisite. We tell the women, ladies, we find nothing wrong with the fact that you want to date a man that makes more money than you. We support that. On the contrary, we tell the guys, there's nothing wrong with them wanting a pure, morally sound, feminine woman that doesn't have her private parts permeated all over the internet, right? Can we compromise on both ends and understand what each other wants? Okay, boom. The men check off this box, the women check off this box. The beauty's a prerequisite, the money's a prerequisite. Now it's really about everything under the hood that matters the most: your values, your morals, your intentions. If you're a woman that just got divorced a month ago, you're probably not a good fit for Meet in the Wild. If you're a dude who has 6 other girlfriends, you're probably not a good case for Meet in the Wild. So speed dating was this social construct that everybody viewed as something antiquated. But in reality, it's not the speed dating that didn't work. It's the fact that people didn't vet. It's the in person version of Tinder. It's $3 to attend at your local coffee shop. We have a speed dating component, but there's a lot of embedded psychology involved in Meet in the Wild. For instance, if we're talking about quality over quantity, and that's what the women want, they've been very vocal that we want quality men. If you're vetting for quality men, there's only so many men that are going to fit the criteria that the women are looking for, which means there should be fewer men than there are women at the event. And that's how we flipped the gender ratio from the apps. When it's a 2-to-1 guy to girl ratio, these are the results we get.
That's a
Can
natural,
we all
good
agree?
psychological
Can
container.
we agree that these aren't good results? Can we just, oh, and the women, ladies, are you happy with the dating app results? It doesn't seem like you are. I've noticed that because there's 25 to 30 new girls at every single event. So by altering the gender dynamic, it does a few things. It places the men in a position of authority because there's less of them than there are of the women. That doesn't mean that the women aren't valuable, but it also kind of creates this friendly, healthy competition amongst the women where women love to compete for men. They do. Most of them will even tell you that. They actually will. But from an attraction standpoint, I think for a man, the one thing that you can do instantly to make yourself more attractive is have more attractive women around you. So now, if there's 15 guys and 30 women, for instance, and the first 10 guys match with the women, there's going to be 5 men left and 15 women, right? So like the gender ratio and opportunity becomes more favorable to the guy as the matches happen at the event. That alone has done wonders for the quality of Meet in the Wild. And it positions the guys the way they should be positioned. We're doing the vetting for these guys. We're not just letting everybody in. And I think the women respect that and they would prefer it opposed to having it be the other way around. Because when we did it the first night, we had no idea what we were doing. And we had like 40 men and 40 women. One woman passed out on the front. The other one fell into the bar in the back. We're like, this is getting chaotic. And then they had to leave. So there were more men than women. And then the men had to be at the tables with no woman sitting across from them. And I'm like, this is never happening again. And you know this in entrepreneurship, when you face adversity and your back's against the wall, that's typically when the creative juices start flowing the most. So I was like, we need to fix this. And we had, I think, 3 refunds. Gloria was like, hey, Kiley, there's a room full of men that are demanding a refund. You need to go talk to them. And we ended up having 3. But at our price point in the last 27 events that we've had, we haven't had 1 refund from any of the guys. We're really, really proud of that because we're big on sort of listening to the women and listening to the men and understanding how to add different features to the event that appease both sides. And I think the women really appreciate that. And the men do too, because when's the last time they've been in an environment when there's a surplus of women that are good looking, morally sounded, and looking for a relationship? There's no other option. So,
No, you got a
we're
good
trying to make the most.
you've got a good clientele list for both sides, right? I mean, once you can help them with the relationships, I'm sure there's other avenues for the business that you could grow that on. But I'd love to ask about, let's go back to boundaries. I want to explore how do boundaries get set properly and how do you communicate that? Like when you have disputes or arguments or disagreements, how do you approach that?
Yep. So that's a great question. I really appreciate you asking it. I love this topic because I think it's really helpful to men and women. If you're in a position where you're setting boundaries during the argument, you haven't set boundaries, right? I think the key is to not be controlling, but rather be in control. I'm going to say that again. You don't want to be controlling. You want to be in control. And the way that you do that is by setting your boundaries and giving the woman full autonomy to leave if she doesn't agree to them, right? Like, for instance, hey, hypothetical situation, one that I have been in many times. Okay, so one thing that I always tell guys is that you need to let the woman approach you for the relationship because the woman needs to emotionally come to you at her own pace. And if you try to force that, it's going to really alter the overall quality of the relationship. The other reason I do it though If the woman is the one pursuing the relationship, you have the opportunity to assert boundaries. If you're the one as the man pursuing the relationship, you essentially forfeit the opportunity to lay boundaries. Because think about it. Hey, sweetheart, I want to be in a relationship with you. Oh, you want, okay, you reciprocate the feelings. Great. Here are my boundaries. It's almost like, dude, you're the one pursuing this and wanting this. When a woman approaches me, it's like, hey, listen, we can try the relationship, but before we try it, here are some things I'm willing to tolerate, and here are some things I'm not willing to tolerate. For instance, I don't take women seriously who go on yachts with a bunch of single women and a bunch of single men. To which if she says, "Oh, well, I go on yachts every summer with my girls and I have this guy friend who's great. We've known each other for years. We've only slept with each other 10 times and he's just a friend you have nothing to worry about." Right? In a situation like that, I wouldn't get upset. I wouldn't say, "No, you can't go on that boat with them." I'd say, "Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like you guys have a really good friendship and he sounds like a good dude. How about we just keep it casual? Let's just do that." Right? I'm in control. I'm not controlling. And I think when you truly speak with conviction and the woman understands that, no, you're serious, you value yourself as a man, and you're not willing to settle for a woman that's not going to respect you. Remember, it's paramount that the woman needs to respect you. As men, you also need to earn your boundaries. And I think that this is a touchy subject because a lot of guys will hear this and they'll be like, hey, sweetheart, here's 20 boundaries 6 months into the relationship. No, you have to earn them. You need to be the type of quality man that at the end of the day, I know this is probably politically incorrect to say, but I really do believe it. It's almost as the man needs to be her best option to truly assert the boundaries that he wants and to get full respect from the woman. And I know that's a crazy thing to say, and it's an unfair thing to say. But at the end of the day, I've tested this multiple times and I've seen other men in their relationships and coaching them and just seeing the overall dynamic of how things go once they take that step towards monogamy. You need to put in the work as a man and you need to be confident saying, hey, I might lose this girl and I need to be comfortable losing her. If I set this boundary and she doesn't agree, if she walks away, you need to stand strong. Because if you assert a boundary and she doesn't respect it, you need to let that girl walk away. Because if you chase her, you now have forfeited the boundaries that you set. Set your watch as to when it's going to happen again, because I promise you it will. I would
And then
also
you
say
go
in
into the
most
chasing
relationships,
frame. Because
say
now
that again.
you go into the chasing frame. Because then she was pursuing you. You were the one that were evaluating. You were the one
100%.
that she was trying to
Yep.
decide, are you my best option? But then if you give up
100%.
that boundary, you give up, you fail, and you lose your ground, your strength, your position, then you're now the one leaning towards her. And now the whole dynamic has changed. She's not evaluating you as the best
Totally.
option anymore. You've just fallen off.
Yep. Yeah. And again, that's a masculine frame that you need to uphold throughout the course of the relationship. So, hey, I don't take girls seriously who go out on yachts every weekend. If you want to do that, we'll be casual. If she says, okay, fine, let's be casual, I'm going on the boat. No, 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 no. Why don't we give the relationship a shot? No, dude, you fucked up. That has completely altered the dynamic of the relationship. And you could have done everything right for the first year. You make that one mistake, she is going to start viewing you from a different lens. She's going to start feeling different about you. And I think men don't understand. They think that the length of the relationship determines the strength of the relationship, and it doesn't. If you lose your frame, and it's incremental, it's just like anything else. These little incremental changes at scale over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months really make a profound difference in the overall quality and respect of the relationship. And sometimes as men, we're I'm not going to speak for all men, but most men, I can speak for myself. I like my life to be simple, structured, and repeatable. I like my routine. I don't like trying new things. So if you fall in to a set of bad routines where you're basically acquiescing to her demands or she's trying to shit test and cross your boundaries and you let her, you subliminally aren't going to realize just how much traction has been lost in that relationship. She needs to constantly look up to you and respect you she's not going to be able to be confident in your ability to lead if you're forfeiting your boundaries and your preferences left and right as the relationship um, goes longer.
Yeah, well said. 100%. 100% agree. Boundaries are really important. You know what also is important is values. How do
Mm.
you advise a man to discover his values or to familiarize himself? What are maybe some values in the community in the meet to the wild for men and women? Like, where do values stack, and can you define the quality of them and how they relate?
Absolutely, man. I think our values are just basically reinstilling traditional values into our society. I think that the nuclear family has been a tested and proven concept. And we as a society has absolutely deviated from it. And the results sort of speak for itself, right? I think that we mention our values as a company: respect, integrity, honesty, monogamy, right? We make it abundantly clear that we're taking a stance against hookup culture and we're taking a stance against the degeneracy that's happening in dating apps and social media. In terms of being familiar and comfortable with your values as a man, I think just like anything else, it's not much different from a woman. You have to look at the narratives that are being perpetuated in society, and you need to have enough self awareness to understand if that's truly what you want, right? Do you want a trophy wife so you can basically just feel good about yourself and all the times that you were thrown into a locker in high school? You want that hot girl to show the world that you finally made it? Yeah, I mean, not the best approach when it comes to picking a quality partner. I think you need to give men permission in terms of what they actually want. And it's probably going to align to their biological imperative as men, where we're the hunters, we're the gatherers, and the woman is the nurturing piece that's support of us. When I come, like, my girl's primary role is to alleviate stress from my life, not add to it. Right. So there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting a woman who is going to put in the time to the relationship to make it fulfilled for both of you. I don't think there's nothing inherently wrong in saying, hey, sweetheart, like, the cooking, the cleaning, hold down the house, I'll go out and take care of all the bills. It's teamwork. And at the end of the day, it works. It's worked for a really long time. And I think men have trepidation of being honest about what they're really looking for in their female counterpart. And it doesn't mean you need a woman who's uneducated and doesn't make any money. You can be comfortable with the fact that, no, I'm looking for kind, sweet, and feminine. And also, if there is a statistical certainty that she reaches a certain body count number, if that is going to deter the quality of the relationship, call me insecure for not wanting that. If you can statistically prove to me that the likelihood of her cheating or leaving goes up drastically after a certain amount of men that she's been with, yeah, like, call me insecure all day long. I don't want that. And so at the end of the day, these are things that men need to factor in. And listen, I'm not saying you can't be platonic friends with women. I wouldn't suggest it at the end of the day, because again, you're giving her your attention, which she values, and she's not reciprocating with the things that you probably value in a romantic relationship. But women are very fascinating creatures. We've had so many incredible women come in and help us at Meet in the Wild, right? I'm not saying you can't have relationships with women in general, but as men, you need to be unapologetic for what you're looking for in a relationship. And it's going to come down to who that girl is and how she acts, more so than how she looks. And if you have that one reversed, it's like the woman picking to date the guy who only makes the most money and she doesn't factor in any other characteristics. That is just as much of a recipe as for disaster as the guy who picks the hottest girl in the room. The other thing, if you pick the hottest girl in the room, listen, now you're at risk of her always being able to put herself in a situation where higher caliber men can vet for her attention, can DM her, can approach her. It's just not a quality recipe for a successful relationship. If you're only selecting on that criteria, values overlooks 100% of the time for men. And I think if you can maybe even pick, I'm not saying don't date attractive women, but if you gave me a girl that's a 9 and a girl that's a 7, but that 7 truly will fight tooth and nail to make sure the relationship works. She fully respects you. She admires you. She's dedicating her life to help your mission. I'm happy to sacrifice a couple notches on the beauty scale to ensure that I have a really quality filled relationship that's going to last for more than an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a major mission win. If you can find that type of girl, you're gonna have the less competition. It's like the whole story with like tens, the attraction scale. So much competition, so much desire for attention, and if you lose out, she's having so much of it coming from all different directions. What is the hope for a 10? Like if there's a 10 listening to this, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say that if you're a 10 listening to this, don't fall back on just your beauty, because the guy that you want to be with, you're going to need to bring more to the table with him. I would also tell 10s, 9, 8s, whoever that are women, to understand the difference between a man who is exploring casual fun versus a man who is serious about investing his time and resources into cultivating a relationship with the woman. I think women think that if they get flown out by some entertainer and rapper, that it's something to brag about, when in reality it's not. That's like me paying a girl's bills but never seeing her in person and bragging about how I do that. Being like, oh yeah, I pay her bills and her bills, but yeah, they never really want to see me in person, but I'm the man. No, I'm not. A woman bragging about getting flown out to Miami and then getting flown out for a night and not even getting her return flight paid for just to have some casual fun with a celebrity, that's nothing to brag about. Because at the end of the day, all a woman has to do is say yes to get sexual access, right? It's not hard for women to have sex. It is hard for women to be in a monogamous relationship with a high caliber man, and he's willing to forfeit all of his options to be with her specifically. Those two dynamics couldn't be further apart. And I think a lot of women don't even understand the difference between them. They think attention from any high caliber man is no different than a man at that caliber trying to be in a relationship with them. And you need to know the difference as a woman. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to inevitably put yourself in a scenario where you have multiple casual encounters. Maybe you have fun with these guys when you hang out with them, but none of them are going to be pursuing you for a monogamous relationship. I think it's important to understand women are always going to be the ones um, they're the sexual gatekeepers, but men are the gatekeepers when it comes to relationships. And women need to understand the difference between those two things.
Yeah, relationships and commitment. So if we have
Mm,
these attractive women now more than ever, I think everybody has seen it on Instagram. The tens, majority of them are using OnlyFans, and I wonder, like, what does that translate? I guess it's as you're raised as a very beautiful woman, and so much attention is coming at you. You know, you're almost like just being you have a massive marketing engine that's just somehow bringing tons of traffic to you, and then it's crossing that boundary to become an adult industry porn advocate. And maybe to some context life is short, who cares, starts with feet pics and it evolves from there. And
right.
you get to at least like make your bank and enjoy life. But then the other flip side is, the dark forces, the potential psychological impact of like going down that path in life. But then you get the job security. Do you blame, are really attractive women that go that route to blame for capitalizing on it? And how do you make sense of the OnlyFans phenomena, and what's the future look like for it?
Yeah, I think, man, it's a great topic to talk about. And I think a lot of women just really don't understand the social dynamic of making those choices at a really young age. I would tell these women they are absolutely free to make that choice, but they're not free from the consequences that come with it. And I think at the end of the day, women that do OnlyFans, they may feel at 22, 23 years old, oh, I don't need no man. I'm going to make my money. And I understand the allure, by the way. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't understand the allure, right? If we as men had the option where we could just take our clothes off, put a camera on, and that's our security blanket when it comes to finances, I think a lot of men would probably explore that opportunity. I get the allure, but I don't think that women truly understand the long-term psychological impact that it will have, and the fact that you are basically mortgaging your future, because at any point if you want to become a wife or a mother, you are basically eliminating any chance that you will be able to get the caliber of man that they want. Here's the thing, they'll still be able to get a man, we have a lot of OnlyFans women that end up getting married, but it's never the man that they want to be in a relationship. And women don't like to settle. They don't. They're almost better off being alone in pursuit of a guy they want rather than settling with the guy that they don't want. And so, yeah, listen, I get it. I don't think that it contributes to society, if I'm being honest. I think that porn is something that is far more detrimental to the human psyche that men are aware of. I also think by just engaging in that content, when you think about it, you're basically looking at you're an external third party to a sexual encounter that you're not participating in. I'm going to say that again. I think it's important. You're an external third party to a sexual encounter that you're not participating in. And if you really break that down, what it looks like, if you filmed yourself watching it, you wouldn't watch it again if you watched that film, right? And I also think there's a danger in men conditioning themselves psychologically to get aroused being a third party opposed to being a participant, which leads men to start suggesting crazy shit in their relationships because now you're getting aroused as a spectator and not a participant. And it's happening at a subconscious level. They've done brain scans where a guy who watches a ton of porn, it's this it's similar impact as like a cocaine or heroin addict. It's crazy. Like the psychological impacts are very, very damaging. It impedes your ability to focus as a man, which is everything. And I think now people have the shortest attention spans in the history of the world. It's never been easier to win, but it's also never been easier to get distracted. So you're already battling with your psyche in terms of limiting distractions so you can actually focus on building your mission as a man. You throw in porn to that. Now, all of a sudden, it creates this unrealistic expectation when you can basically just search for anything that you want. And then when you finally get in the flesh with the beautiful woman, your body is at risk for not responding because you've conditioned yourself to get aroused as a third party watching hours and hours of porn. So I think it really has a negative impact on the quality of relationships that men have. And I think the benefits of not watching porn are very, very vast. You're going to notice an immediate increase in your ability to focus, your cognitive abilities, and you're going to look at women as actual women and people rather than sex objects. I think that men are not aware of the psychological damaging impacts of porn, and it's starting to, get discussed more and more. But I'll tell you right now, Alex, this next wave is going to be the most damaging. You think it's bad now. Now men can basically have the ability to just put in a prompt and type out whatever their sexual fantasy is, and it's going to compile a video that if you just take a little step back from the computer, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the AI and reality. And so I think these are topics that need to be discussed more often, and men need to be aware of the psychological impacts that it can have, both on you individually, but also in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're a proponent of the no-fap. I think that is the right move for men, 100%. As long as you can sustain yourself in that direction without getting too crazily aroused while you're in your dating dynamics. But when it comes to the future, I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling. You've got, like you said, Sora and AI prompting. I kind of heard this actually recently that's a new thing that you can do, and I haven't looked into it yet myself. But probably maybe a little black box to watch out for. Then you have the VR goggles that you can put on. That's kind of a crazy experience. Yep. I think androids, to bring this back up, just the future of sex robots. I mean, that is a weird and wild dynamic. Like OnlyFans stars that become AI generated. I've seen that, like AI influencers becoming a thing. It is wild how much of an industry this is, how much of a necessity that I think drives men and women. And I can speak from men's side, like, the drive for being a man to accomplish your goals, but also to mate and to find like the romantic partner, to find that connection. How, if we want to make this, can you spin this into, I'm curious what your spiritual insight is into how God comes into this conversation. You had really great things to say about the values and the right type of woman and what a 10 can do, or what someone that's maybe not high up on the attraction scale. It doesn't matter. Everything, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But when it comes to God, or it comes to your spiritual connection with life, How do you weigh that value or that investment of energy? And what do you see in the dating market related to that?
That's a phenomenal question. You know, people in society, the emergence in OnlyFans, the porn industry, they're acting as if sex was just some recent phenomenon that was just recently discovered and it hasn't been prevalent in our society for thousands of years, right? What I would say to tie it to God, I think your sexual energy is the most potent source of energy that you can have as a man. And I think transmuting it and having the discipline to deflect that energy and put it towards your mission and goals as a man puts you in a category of the 1% of the 1%. From a physical aspect, you'll notice a 25% increase in strength. Like I said, your cognitive functions will operate at a much more efficient level. But at the end of the day, it's hard to put into words, man. If you're really doing what you're supposed to as a man, and you're looking for a genuine relationship and you're not out here just trying to participate in hookup culture, transmuting that sexual energy and having the discipline to do it will make all your other habits fall in line. Like if you can do this one, if your mind has control over your sexual temptations and desires, watch your workout schedule fall in line. Watch your nutrition fall in line. Watch your sleep patterns fall in line. Mastering this one makes everything else fall in line. And I think it's a holistic approach where if everything else does fall in line, whether you call it spiritual or God, you're just going to naturally put yourself in an environment where you're going to naturally attract higher caliber women that are going to be able to sense that energy on you. I really do believe that because it's not that a woman wants a guy that makes money. She wants a man that has the discipline and the traits and the audacious goals to make that money. It's more about who you are to generate it rather than the line on your W 2. And so I also think just having a relationship where God is prevalent in it, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to both be the same religion, but for me, I mean, that's definitely a disqualifier. If a woman's an atheist, I really don't have any desire in cultivating a monogamous relationship with her. Having God present in your relationships and being open about these topics as well, I would say that that's another big factor too. It's tough out here, man, because going back to our conversations with OnlyFans, like I really want to help these girls sometimes, but I know that they don't want to change. But at the end of the day, I can still have like a friendship with a woman who's on OnlyFans. I just wouldn't consider her for a serious relationship. I think being open about these topics too is something that God will be happy for us for doing, right? Getting transparent and vulnerable with these women and really like risking offending them to let them know that like what you're doing here is going to have major long-term ramifications that it appears you're not aware of. And if you don't have a father and you don't have, family members or friends conveying this information to you, then you should respect me for risking the offense to do it. I'm trying to think what else. I think it really comes down to just being honest about your values and honest about the fact that the attraction, I don't want to say it's going to wear off, but a couple years into your relationship, it's less about retraction and, it's more about everything else that you do and everything else you believe in. And I've been really, really firm on not getting into another long-term relationship until I met somebody whose values completely aligned with me. It makes sense, right? It's a simple concept. Like, if your values align and the attraction's there, the likelihood of you guys having a great relationship goes up significantly. But you need to be able to choose on factors that are authentic to you, and you need to be comfortable looking for things, even if they're not popular, right? Like that might mean not being with the most attractive girl that you can get. That really shouldn't matter unless you're living life trying to appease friends, family, and being worried about what other people think about you. You need to be comfortable in your own skin. And that's another thing that transmuting your sexual energy can get you to do. Just being comfortable knowing that as long as you're living life the right way and you're trying to help people and not hurt them, who gives a fuck what people think? Right?
So if
Like
you're
zoom out and look at the Earth and look at how many galaxies are far from Earth. That like if anything, it really requires a pretty low intellect to actually care about what people think in the very temporary time that we're all here together.
Well, there's a lot of things going on outside of our proximity, our worldview. But let me ask you this. When you're not investing in the sexual energy, how do you cultivate it and direct it towards things? Do you do that at all? If you're on the no-fap life, are you not even bringing it up at all during your day, where it becomes like it's just like a hidden resource that you're not expelling and wasting? Or is it you are feeling that attraction and like approaching women, or you're feeling the sexual energy? Do you, I don't know, is there like, there's tantra practices, there's self practice some people have talked about, there's
Yeah,
a partnership practice where you raise the sexual energy and you can feel the yourself now immersed in sexual energy. So when you're having sex, there's a whole new energy that takes over. Or when you meet a really attractive partner, you can feel your desire for her, for example. Is that something that you bring up, or is there any techniques of using that in pursuing your goals, in activating? Like, there's, for instance, I have heard that the desire for sex is a stronger emotion than fear.
absolutely. Yeah, that is great that you said that, because fear is a driver, right? Would you be more motivated to make $10,000 today or get back $10,000 that was just stolen from you? Right? There's a fear aspect that overrides the aspect of like chasing a benefit. Um, and I'm trying to think of how we can like correlate this to sexual energy, because I absolutely believe that sexual energy is more potent than fear. So now it becomes a game of identifying that and learning how to leverage it in the right situations, right? If you know you're fearful of something, but you're logical enough to know that that means it's probably the thing you need to do next the most, you know that if you face the fear on the other side of it, it's never as bad as you thought it was going to be. Whatever you conjured up in your mind typically isn't whatever you conjure up in your mind is always more fearful than facing the actual fear. When you understand the power of sexual energy, now you're able to resist those temptations and transmute them to your other life endeavors and your goals. So it actually gives you more confidence. The more you're able to overcome the temptation, the more confident you're going to get. But it's not about willpower and trying to fight against it. It's about understanding that you're not the type of man that does that, right? It's like trying to fight against alcoholism if you're an alcoholic and you're addicted to liquor. I think you hear these breakthrough stories of people just being like, no, it's not who I am anymore. It's not that I don't do it. It's not who I am. I'm not an addict. I'm not letting a substance control my life. And I think if you adapt that same mindset to your sexual energy, I mean, I think it's like, I think it was Think and Grow Rich, chapter 11 was very, very profound for me in terms of, I forget who wrote the book. He did a multitude of different studies of men who did this, and they were some of the most successful, affluent men in the world. Having control of your sexual impulses is one of the hardest things that you can do as a man. And then being aware of that actually makes it kind of badass if you can control it. Because at the end of the day, what's interesting is that 99% of men can't. And I think that social media, OnlyFans, and this online epidemic is definitely the root cause of it.
Mm.
But if you're one of the few men that can, and you're doing no-fap, whether it's no-fap or semen retention or whatever the case may be, all of a sudden you're going to go from I can't get turned on from being with one woman because I'm addicted to porn to I'm getting rock hard when this girl holds my hand, which is how it's supposed to be at the end of the day. We're supposed to have high sex drives. The fact that we have been going through mental decay because of the porn epidemic and how much of it is readily available for free online to anybody on your phone at any time, it's more that than men not being attractive to women or having low testosterone. If you don't watch that shit and you actually understand the power of sexual transmutation and you harness that energy and put it towards audacious goals that you're trying to set, by default, you're just going to be a higher caliber man because the woman's going to be able to sense that on you. I would go even as far to say, if you hold it in, dude, I know it's weird. I'm not going to have any tangible evidence to prove this. It's almost like they can tell because it's so rare for them to be in the presence of a man who's not distracted and not addicted to porn. The fact that men are out here catching feelings and developing emotional connections for robots should tell you everything you need to hear about this topic and how bad it is out there, which is why another reason why Meet in the Wild has been able to capitalize in trying to solve this complex problem and putting people in the flesh together. Yeah, there's going to be some nerves, but we're going to attract somebody who is willing to put themselves in a discomfort situation. It takes an element of courage to put yourself in a domain where you're going to be sitting directly across from people when you've been dating the last 10, 15 years off a pixelated screen on an app on your phone.
So let me ask you this. If you're at the event or you're out at the gym, you're a guy, you haven't had sex for a while, months, let's say, and you're not, you're doing semen retention. Is your perspective that you're even more relaxed and can tap into communicating with your body language because of that state? Or is it the alternative? Because you're not having any regular sex, you're more rigid, or you're more in your head, or you're more likely to get nervous by a pretty girl and what you might say to her to approach her, versus the other side. You're having regular sex, you're very relaxed in your body, and you're easily aroused, and you're able to direct that arousal energy so that you're not getting stuck in a fear state where you're kind of doubting yourself or nervous about what should I say or how should I say it. Instead, you're just like that guy out that is super confident and laid back, or you're a guy maybe in a relationship where girls are a little bit more responsive because as a guy in a relationship, you're less nervous. You're not coming off as needy from a state of lack. Like, I guess my stance that I'm asking is, I feel like if you go no-fap and you're not investing any of that, I think you get more prioritization of your resources on your business, on your goals. But then when it comes to the actual moment to approach a really attractive woman, if you're not doing that regularly, the nervousness and the fear that comes up becomes a judgment block in your system of being that prevents you either from initiating the conversation at all, or stuttering, or maybe having a difficulty, having a productive conversation that leads to a phone number, that leads to a date.
Yeah, great question. I think first and foremost, if you're a guy doing semen retention, it's going to require a lot of discipline. So to get to that point where you can actually go 15, 30 days, it's going to boost your confidence simply because you were able to do it. And I think it also makes you unattached from the outcome. And whether it's sales in business or in dating, you're much more likely to get the outcome if you're completely detached to it and you're comfortable walking away. Now, from an initial approach perspective, I actually think it helps you because your sex drive is going to be much higher. You're going to be less inclined to talking and more inclined to just being bold with your approach in terms of what you're looking for within reason. Of course, you want to be ethical and respectful, but I think you'll be less nervous because you're detached from the outcome, and you'll be more masculine because your masculine imperative basically takes over at that point. But now you're able to control it. So it's not like you're going to go bonkers and start throwing yourself at this girl. You've gained the confidence of being able to hold on to your semen for 30 days, which is really, really hard to do. You become more disciplined in other theaters of life, which increases your confidence too. You're detached from the outcome, but you're also very forthright and upfront about what you're looking for. And I think that comes out in your energy, your eye contact, your tonality. It's going to help you with the woman because you're going to present yourself in a much more masculine way compared to when you were watching porn all day, trying to chase the woman in person that can replicate what the woman does on the screen.
Yeah, I think you become a more self-respected man in that position and discerning.
100%.
If you can like you said, not attached to any outcome, right? Indifferent, but still be open to initiating. So coming from like a relaxed, self-confident, respecting myself, recognizing I'm the prize, I'm grinding in my life. I 100% agree. The no fapping will help you with that. The nuance is to not be so rigid, though, to still be able to kind of tap into your relaxation and not be so stern and stoic. I think there's a balance between that kind of strong masculine, but still also being unreactive, and a tad of fun, a tad of like carefreeness and passion.
Absolutely. And I think it's ridiculous that a lot of people say, yeah, you can't have that side or can't tap into it. I think it's absolutely paramount uh, that you do, to be honest with you. And I also think masculinity is more of a mindset too. I think it's your philosophy of the world. And you need to come from an abundant mindset and understand there's like 4 or 5 billion women in the world. And if it doesn't work out with one of them, like as a man, if you put in the work, like you should never get too caught up on that, right? And so that's just coming from a frame of abundance. Or if you come from a frame of scarcity, these are the things that absolutely repel women. This is when you're going to hang on for dear life when you get to talk to a subpar woman who's average at best, who doesn't treat you with respect. If you're operating from scarcity, you're going to allow that behavior and you're going to do everything you can to continue the relationship. If you have respect for yourself, and you're not, watching porn, you're self-improving with your body, your mindset, you're constantly improving yourself, eventually you're going to look at this woman and understand, hey, if you don't appreciate and respect my offer to let you be part of my life, it's no hard feelings, but it's your loss, sweetheart. And you really need to get to that point as a man. I think a lot of guys fake it until they make it, which is okay. It's better than nothing, but there's no shortcut. You have to become that guy. It's like a woman in a mall. If she's going for her favorite purse, she is going to make a beeline to that store. And any other kiosk that's trying to offer her anything while she's going to that store, she's not going to pay any mind to them because she's going for the purse that she wants. You need to be that purse as a man. And the only way you get there is by doing the work, and you can't do it for her either. So there's really no shortcuts here. I think guys are looking for a shortcut, and I don't believe in the sexy, quick answers, but that's good news to the guys that are actually willing to put in the work, because if you do and you take a holistic approach to health and success as a man, you are going to be in a category of one. And despite women around here aren't going to tell you that, they know it's true, and you can judge by their actions rather than what they say. So I think as a man, like I challenge men to improve holistically in multiple buckets of life, to be competent with their finances and to have a career that they have passion for, and to be a good friend out here and help out your fellow brothers, and to really be plugged into a good network, to dress well, to present yourself well, to articulate your thoughts well. Like it's well rounded. And if you just focus on one of the buckets, that may have worked 20 years ago, but it's certainly not working today.
Yeah. And the nexus of just having them all together, they really feed off and strengthen. Like all these different values, all the different arenas of being a man, of just being a human. It gives you flexibility, right? I think what's
It does.
profound is when Kobe or Michael Jordan or the superstars get onto the game, they're so dynamic. They've done all these different aspects of that of the arena of the basketball game, of the football game. And because they've
100%.
really practiced and they've drilled and they're so well versed, right? And they cover the 360 view, they're poised and they're present. And they can come in and they know how to release, they know how to let go, they know how to enter into that flow where it's a playing to win mentality, but you're also in a relaxed state and you're able to have intention and your soul that comes out for you to perform at your absolute best. And you do that because you're just dynamic. You've got all these different aspects of life that are working for you. And so the best takeaway, I think, that what you're saying and is to balance on all fronts. Make a united, equal progression in your life. Be the ultimate man. Make the investments. And by doing so, you'll reap the rewards. You'll be the discerning man, the chooser of
Absolutely.
the best girl, the best type of relationship you'd want to have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And to second, that's a great analogy. When Kobe and MJ get the ball at the end of the game and the world's watching and there's 6 seconds left, everyone knows who's taking the last shot. And they take it with full conviction and confidence because they know that they've prepared for that moment and they've put in the work more so than everybody else on the court. And so you sort of have this selfish belief that, no, I'm shooting this basketball. I'm the one that should be shooting this basketball over everybody else here. I think as a man, you inherit that same mindset with women if you actually put in the work, where it's like, no, you need to understand that you deserve it as a man. When you put in the work and you sit down with the girl at Me in the Wild, she is going to understand very quickly if you believe that you're deserving of her and every woman in this room. And if you shortcut life as a man and you don't put in the work where it's necessary to, they're going to sense that in the way you present yourself, your tonality, and your communication as well. And women will test you and say things to see if they can sort of shake you or get you in your feelings, because they know if they do, it means that you're lacking in certain areas and that you haven't put in the work. I also think it gives men the ultimate advantage to be holistic, because at the end of the day, some women are attracted to certain things. Maybe one woman really prefers a guy that has money. Maybe another woman prefers a guy who's charismatic. Another woman is judging his value based on the men in his network. A lot of women do that. They judge the quality of man by the quality of men that they hang out with. My point is, if you have all of these things, you're just going to appeal to a much broader base of women. If you're fully stacked, you're going to be able to appeal to basically every single woman in that room to some degree. Which is, if you're the guy who's really out of shape and his money's right, but he dresses like shit and he's not connected, you're really only checking off one box. And if you're in competition with the man who checks off many, you want to put yourself in a position. As men, we're competing against each other in the business world and against each other for women. And you can do it in an ethical way, but to think that you don't have to optimize multiple areas of your life in 2025, you basically have no choice as a man than to become above average. But it doesn't take that much work to become above average nowadays, because most people are so distracted they can't go to the bathroom without taking their phones with them, and they can't focus on something for more than a minute at a time. So I think it presents a great advantage to men in our modern day dating culture and society to truly get ahead. It's never been less competitive in terms of what's the size of the pool of men who are really looking to focus for an extended period of time and be detached from the outcome and still work on the days when they don't feel like it. That pool's never been smaller. The pool of distracted men who can't focus has never been more. So, I think it's incumbent on all men to fulfill their masculine imperative, which is the physical aspect, the mental aspect, and being able to protect and provide. And if you do that, women aren't going to be an issue, because you're just going to have a flock of them pursuing you at the end of the day. And that's another problem for another day. But it's much better than having to chase women, qualify women, and not even having women responding to you. Men experience true loneliness. I don't think women understand that. A man who hasn't put in the work at a juncture in his life, he's going to experience true loneliness when he can't even have a conversation with the women. Women face, I'm having so many conversations. Where's the guy that I want to be in a relationship that can qualify to me? So Meet in the Wild has definitely given us polar opposite vantage points of the problems that the genders are facing. But make no mistake about it, women don't have it nearly as easy as a lot of men believe they have it out here. They don't. Like, they want to be in healthy monogamous relationships with one guy. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from my experience at Meet in the Wild so far. We've done 28 events, and man, this resonates with the women more than the men. And I didn't expect that, which has now given us more of a baseline, more opportunity to help more people.
Yeah, what a fascinating inside look into the whole archetype of the woman's
God.
mind. And her position is, so they have such amazing, there's just as much men out there as there are women, but they're dealing with trying to choose between all these options. And the challenge that they have is finding the option of the man that is above average, right? At least as kind of like as a threshold, but then the ones that have it really all tightly put together, where they feel like they can chase and feel like they're being chosen. Like, they're not the ones choosing. They're also dealing with the extra level of filtering, where guys are being too needy. They're giving up their time and availability too much. They're not being focused on their mission and inviting the woman or letting her know where she stands subtly through his actions, through his demeanor, through his availability, through the way he communicates, through his body language, right? All these, through the boundaries that he sets, through his self-view, his mindset, his self-confidence, right? All these attributes that they're trying to filter through. And then you get to the point where they're all competing, right? Women then are also competing with the other women that these high value men have access to, and rightfully so. Right? Men are getting older. They're working towards building their empire, getting things set. All right. And then by in their 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, they're a lot more successful than they've ever been in their 20s. Whereas the flip side, that women had more access or more abundance of opportunities when they're younger. And so you have this interesting kind of crossroad where those now meet. And the challenge that women are having is an interesting insight that you have, and you've seen now over 28 different events how much of it is out there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's amazing how the dynamic completely shifts when you just put a woman and a man face to face with each other. Anything can happen. You could have met that same guy on an app. Like, it's very hard to articulate your words and the meaning of your words through an application. Tonality is a big one. I'm taking this from Alex Hermosi. He always has this saying. It's like, I didn't say I hit my wife. I didn't say he hit his 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 wife. All of those are the same thing, but a shift in tonality and an emphasis on the tonality of one word completely changes what you're saying. And so, understanding the art of communication and how most of it is nonverbal, and it's going to be your tonality and your body language as a man, like sitting straight up, eye contact, talking in a slow paced way compared to how you probably talk with your buddies. I think a lot of the guys, you know, if you're broke and you're looking to make money and you have no money, you're looking at a multi-year, possibly decade transformation. If you're morbidly obese, you're probably looking at a couple years at least in terms of getting back in shape to hit your target fitness goals. If you have your career right and you have your goals right and you have your health right, learning just the subtle nuances of communication with women and learning, hey, just stop doing these three things and maybe we can work on a couple social cues over here. It can make all the difference in like a couple weeks, a month, 2 months. It's not a long journey. You just need to get men to be cognizant of the fact that they're failing, which we don't tell them they're failing. We let the statistics at our event suggest to them that they're failing. It's like, hey, you went to 2 events, you talked to 60 women, you didn't get a number? Okay, you might want to change your approach, and we're happy to help you do that, right? But I think a lot of times there's this ego barrier with men, and it's a difficult conversation to have with them. When I come from the lens of, hey, guys, it's okay. You don't know what you don't know. This information is not prevalent. If anything, they're going at great lengths to suppress it. This is a very valuable decision that you're going to make in your life, right? Just like your career is, just like your health is. The woman that you pick can make or break your business and make or break the quality of your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. So it's probably worth putting the time in to optimize that area of your life. And in terms of how much are you wanting to invest? Well, let's go over this. How much is the average guy going to pay for an engagement ring and a wedding? You're telling me you're not willing to invest a pretty penny to get this situation solved? When you do solve it, you're more than willing to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars on the engagement ring and the wedding. Men need to prioritize this area of their life, because if they don't, instead of spending it, they're going to lose it. Well, they're going to spend it. It's not going to be a good investment. And then they're going to get taken for 50% of their net worth on top of it. So this is a topic that I think needs to be discussed more. And I think men need to be a little bit more transparent with themselves and understand, okay, this might be an area that I need help in. And that's perfectly okay. We're going to help you a lot by going to the first event, because any fear of rejection is going to get immediately dealt with. When you talk to 25, 30 women, afterwards, you're going to go to the bar. The next girl you see, you're going to go right up to her, because you're going to be like, this is not nearly as bad as I thought it was. But you conjure this up in your mind because everybody's dating and automating their dating on an app. Very seldom do you actually go and approach women. And then there's this other thing of, well, if the woman's attracted to you, you can say anything you want. But if you say that same thing and she's not attractive to you, then you're at risk of, hey, don't talk to me like that. So I do get that there's like a social dynamic to it, but that's why we give the men and women permission at Meet in the Wild to kind of lower the barrier in their guard and understand that everybody's here, single, dating for the right reasons, looking to find a quality partner. We give everybody permission to talk about those things. Where if you saw that same girl 3 hours earlier in a coffee shop, it's like, is she single? If she is single, is she dating for the intention of a relationship? Do our values align? There's all these hypothetical what ifs that prevent men from making that approach. And then, of course, men don't like getting rejected, despite we have no problem getting rejected by each other in business deals, right? Like, if you start a new business, you're going to be hurt. You're going to hear the word no all the time by men who are actually very capable and can put you in positions that can radically enhance your quality of life, your finances, and your business. You have no problem with that. but you care what this girl who was a barista at Starbucks, if she doesn't want to go out to you, it's gonna ruin your week. It makes no sense. I think men need to be a little bit more logical when it comes to women.
Yeah, and I love what you said. When a woman is attracted to you, you can say anything and she'll like it,
Anything you want.
right?
She'll love it. She'll ask you to do it again.
Yeah. But it's the opposite. So when you lose the attraction, watch out. Be very be very uh articulate with your words and deliver the right message appropriately, because that could ricochet. We've talked a lot about
How
communication
you deliver
skills.
it. Yeah, how you deliver that message, though, is also going to have a profound impact on her response. So, two guys can say the same thing. One guy can say it in a deeper voice, more relaxed, maintaining eye contact. He's stoic, he's calm. The other guy's jittering, he's talking fast. It's like that. Guys have more control over their encounters with women than they're led to believe.
Oh yeah, 100%. So what are the resources available through Meet in the Wild for developing communication skills?
Absolutely. So, Meet in the Wild is a great event, and let me preface it by saying the biggest benefit of Meet in the Wild is the networking benefit. So the first 45 minutes, we just put the guys in a room and we put the girls in a room, and I basically force the guys to network, and that is by far the most fulfilling part of it. I'm from an 8,000 person town in Rhode Island, smallest state in the country. Those are the types of rooms that got me opportunities to eventually get here, right? We also want to give the guys the opportunity to succeed with the women. Do it your way. It's only when they ask for help or we identify they need the help. And so we're able to see the engagement metrics. We have QR codes. We can see who scans them with who. If the guy's getting numbers, are they turning into dates? If he's not getting numbers, what is he saying at the date, at the table? So I think the communication aspect is a big one. And what we do is we coach men who need it. And if they don't think they need it, we don't press them on it, but we offer them the opportunity after we gave them the opportunity to do it themselves. And as you can imagine, in a face to face environment, some of the guys do better than others. And we do have guys that need help. As long as they're, and this is where it's really important to vet the right guys at the event and make sure that they're coachable, that their values are in the right place, that they're not going to come in here and try to sleep with every single girl and lead them on and say, I want to be in a relationship and, tarnish my brand and whatnot. I think when they do end up doing coaching, it's more about working with me and my team and going over just the basics of what not to do first, right? Again, I always preface it where I think a lot of these games and strategies are trivial and stupid to a degree, but if you don't understand them, you're going to lose that girl. So your communication over text is really important. Less is always more. One of the things that I always tell men, it absolutely will clear up at least 80% of the headaches that they're dealing with. This thing right here is to set the date only. You're using it to set the date. So you meet that girl at Meet in the Wild, and then you're setting up a date for Thursday. You use the phone just to set the date. If you use it for more than that, you are giving away your attention for free. And I've seen so many guys are like, "Oh, I met this beautiful girl on Saturday, and we're going on a date on Friday of next week." And then they'll call me and be like, "Kiley, oh, this is the one. I can't wait to see her tomorrow. I just talked to her for 4 hours on the phone last night. We have such a great connection." And then I don't have the heart to tell them, "Bro, your date isn't Friday. It was just Wednesday." Because that girl's going to say, "Oh, something came up. My grandma's sick," right? It's like, as men, you need to understand the whole purpose of going on the date was to let her know what happened in your life between Saturday and Friday. But you had to get on the phone. And FaceTime is the worst because that's the highest quality of attention that you can give a woman because you're unable to multitask when you're FaceTiming. At least on the phone, you could have it on speaker. And at least on text, you could be texting multiple people at once. But this comes down to the attention discussion that we had. Less is more. And I would say set the date, no more than 4 text messages per day. Train yourself to not be dependent on the phone because you're giving away your attention and your time. And you're also trying to convince her that your time is valuable, which is probably why she's interested in the first place. So when we position these guys as busy, capable, valuable men that are looking for a life partner, and they're here because it's not viable for them to talk to 25, 30 women and set up different dates, Their time is valuable, which makes that attractive to women. But when they connect and all of a sudden they're giving away their same time that was deemed valuable for free a day or two after meeting that woman, no, don't do it. Short text messages, 3 to 4 a day, use the phone to set the date. Continue doing that, and that woman is going to start fighting for your validation. They appreciate attention from men, but they don't respect it. The real attention they want is from the man who they do respect. And one of the reasons they respect that man is because he's not giving that attention out freely. It's the same thing. If you truly love what you like a woman, and the chemistry's fire and you're having a great time your first couple of weeks dating, if she doesn't sleep with you, you're going to be like, wait a minute. I mean, this kind of sucks, but it's going to make you more interested in her because you're going to be like, wow, this girl actually has a moral compass and she's not doing what every other girl in this environment has done up to this point. So I think it really works for you as a man and a woman when you use your attention the right way. And as a woman, when you present yourself the right way. Now, a lot of women have actually mastered the art of manipulation and they're actually not like that, but they know how to present themselves in that light to a certain caliber man. Women are very socially calibrated here. And I will say this, most of them are running absolute circles around men in most scenarios that I've seen. So it's important for the guys to really understand the basics of social etiquette because it really goes a long way. And it's fragile in the beginning because you can have a great connection, but if you don't play your cards right in those opening first few weeks, you're going to lose that girl and you're never going to have an opportunity to get her back. So there's different stages of relationships. And it's not like you have to put on a facade and act like somebody that you're not, but you have to be strategic in the beginning or else you're never going to get the opportunity to curate a long-term relationship with that girl. And when you do have a relationship, yeah, of course, you could be more comfortable in your own skin. But I think it's harder for men because we're more likely to get comfortable. When you have a hot girl lying on your couch at every moment of the day, it takes an element of discipline to be able to stay on your mission, not deviate. Like Gloria lives with me. I kick her out for the day. She's up at the Sky Lounge doing work for Meet in the Wild, right? I don't even put myself in that position. But I think there's an element of discipline that men need to have and to be honest with themselves of like, dude, like don't become a different person that attracted this woman in the first place. Right. And
Yeah.
keeping the relationship and keeping that masculine frame and adhering to the boundaries that you asserted in the opening dating phase of the relationship, you need to be consistent when you're 2 years in and not deviate. And women are always going to be curious and ponder whether you're getting emotionally weak. And that's why they shit test and put you in positions to see how you're going to react. They're very keen to that. And so it's important that you become the man you need to be, but then you also have to continue self-improving and never end because you really can't beat a man who's resilient, continuously self-improves and doesn't quit. Like I think that's the non-sexy answer, but you would probably respect it because look at this podcast. You know, if you continue doing it, there are going to be days where you probably don't feel like doing it. But if it's your mission and you continue getting better at podcasting while doing more podcasts, it's just inevitable that you're going to become in one of the top 1%. And one thing that did really motivate me when I did a podcast, I think the top 1% of podcasters, if you do 20 episodes, you're in the top 1%. So my goal with my dating podcast was 20 episodes. That was it. It was never a subscriber amount. I said, we're going to stop at 20 episodes. I thought of the concept of Meet in the Wild. And to a degree, I already had product market fit because I asked 40 women on the podcast if they would be open to going and participating in an environment like that. 39 of them said yes. So I already knew to a degree the women wanted this and they were sick of the apps. But yeah, man, like it's the non-sexy answer that at the end of the day, consistency beats everything. And it's almost impossible to beat a man who consistently self-improves in every facet of life.
Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence.
Nothing. It's so true. And I understand that that goes against the majority of happy-go-lucky motivational quotes that get permeated on the internet every single day. But when I hear that, it really, really does excite me because whether it's in business or podcasting, you're going to experience adversity. There's going to be droughts. And now when those droughts happen, like for instance, with Meet in the Wild, we were cruising until two back-to-back Cat 4 hurricanes can disrupt performance in a local market. And then things were really tough. But when they were tough, in my mind, I'm like, man, when there's honest competition and they build events and they have to go through these challenges, I'm so confident they're going to drop off. And those are the moments where you need to be cognizant that consistency is everything, and being able to be persistent and continue showing up. I truly believe, especially now in 2025, probably 90% of success, if I had to be honest with you. It's probably 90%. Not to say that other skills don't matter, not to say that your values as a person don't matter, but the reality is that most men and women cannot stay consistent for an extended period of time and be emotionally detached from the outcome at the end of the day. That is such a rare mindset and skill set to cultivate now. It's the ultimate advantage if you have it, regardless of what the business endeavor is, because most people have shiny object syndrome. It gets tough and then they go to another opportunity, never realizing that those same obstacles are going to be prevalent in that second opportunity. You just haven't experienced them yet. Whereas if you stick with your initial choice, all of those problems, you're going to be able to know how to circumvent them and deal with them if you stick with it. And then the new competition that comes in won't. So it's really about being persistent. You put yourself in a position where it's basically inevitable that you're going to succeed, because you only truly fail if you quit.
Yeah, that's a tip of the spear mindset hack right there that you just shared.
Thank you, man. It's served me. I've seen it serve you as well, man. And so yeah, again, not the quick fix sexy answer that people want to hear, but the quick fix sexy answer is never the answer that you should be looking for.
Yeah, the consistency wins out over time. Do you also offer coaching for women on the other side?
Very interesting. So we don't, but we're going to,
Cool.
because the women need it. And that's not a bad thing. The women need to understand that their whole life up to this point, they have been in a position of leverage where they can sit back and basically vet all of the men that are interested in them. I tell the women at the event, ladies, men and women are biologically different. What you like, we probably won't, and vice versa. For instance, ladies, we know you don't like it when a man over pursues and blows up your phone and puts in a ton of interest too early in the relationship. It's overbearing and it turns you off. I don't mind it when a beautiful woman is into me and puts in a lot of effort and tries to contact me and makes me a priority in her life. I actually prefer it. And then I tell the story of Gloria, how like when her and I first met, she wouldn't leave me alone. Like my brothers were here visiting me and she just stayed the whole weekend and wouldn't leave. But I admired the effort. And at the end of the day, I looked at her effort. I compared it to the other women that I was talking to. And I was like, no, I respect this. And so I try to convince the women to take the initiative in matching with the men at the event. I go, if you don't do that and you want your ego to get in the way, you now risk that man matching with another woman, all because your ego prevented you from taking the next step and shooting your shot. Right. And we're like, ladies, you have no problem shooting a man down when he's shooting their shot. It gives them different perspective and it makes them respect men more, because women they're great at rejecting, but they're not very good at being rejected. And I think being in an atmosphere like Meet in the Wild, when we position the men as an authority because they are, it really gets the women to act in a different way. And they're nervous because they're like, wait a minute, I've never had a guy at this level. How do I keep him? And so we're going to offer coaching in that regard too. And sometimes with the women, it's difficult because they need to also untrain bad habits that have served them in other areas of life. Again, if you're a corporate executive, you need to cultivate pretty masculine traits to be there. You need to be bold. You need to be aggressive. You need to be unapologetic. Those traits will serve you in that domain professionally, but it might not necessarily serve you at home with a high caliber guy who also is in business and deals with the same stresses that you do every single day. He doesn't want to be the one that alleviates your stress. He wants you to be the one that alleviates his. And so being aware of the sexual polarity in men and women in relationships and understanding it's very possible for a woman to have a flourishing career while also being cognizant of the femininity that that man is going to need from you to make the relationship work. Like, I think just like anything else, those are skills that women need to understand. And they have the benefit of acting however they want with no repercussions, because there will always be a litany of men waiting there to just provide them a nice lifestyle and deal with whatever shitty behavior they're going to exhibit that day. Again, it comes down to respect, and women need to be with the man that they respect. men need to be with the woman that they love. Women need to be with the man that they respect. And again, I think the gender differences are so fascinating to me because women are such fascinating creatures. They really are. Like, to really understand them, you appreciate them when you put in the time to understand that they're a little bit more emotional. It's also not politically correct for a woman to be vocal about the type of man that she's looking for, right? She can't be like, well, I want him to be tall, strong, and rich. I want him to be able to cheat on me, but not do it. But I definitely want him to be able to if he wants to. I want him to, like, don't answer me right away and don't pick up every single time I come. Like, it's unflattering for women to, like, come out here and say that that's what they're looking for. But as men, we need to understand what they respond to. You always need to listen to what women do. Listen to what women do. And women are so good at convincing you of their words because there's beauty behind the words and that you want to believe them. You want to believe that he's just a friend. You want to believe that there's nothing inherently wrong with going on boats with a bunch of single people, but you're the perfect girl and you want to be the perfect wife. Men need to be in control of their emotions and their hormones, and their mind needs to take precedent over both of those. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have respect for yourself as a man, she's never going to respect you as a woman.
100%. I mean, man, you're just dropping fire bombs. I think this is a podcast to
Fun,
re-listen to. There's so much wealth of knowledge and wisdom that I can sense and viscerally agree with you on so many points. You know, it's almost as if that Into the Wild is recalibrating the dating game. And it's really exciting to hear the progress, the success that you're having. How can people reach out to you? What's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Absolutely, man. Go to meetinthewild.com. We have a contact tab. You can reach out. You can also go to meet.in.the.wild. That's our Instagram. So we have a bunch of videos up there of different events that we have. We have a Silver Fox event for the older demo, and then our evening event for the younger demo. The optics weren't very favorable when we had a 63-year-old man sitting across from a 22-year-old woman. When we only had one age group. We're like, this doesn't really promote the values that we're trying to stand on. And then my personal Instagram, Kiley_Lynch. You can reach out there as well. I'm always posting some stuff about the events and whatnot. Yeah, we're really trying to disrupt an industry that is one of the biggest industries out there. And I think it's rare because when technology disrupts something like the apps did with in-person dating, very rarely does that antiquated thing that initially got disrupted be the redisruptor in society. And I think relationships are something that you're never going to be able to substitute an in-person connection with technology and automation. As much as people have tried, I think the more technological advancements that come to fruition, it's only going to strengthen the desire to have that in-person connection. And then obviously, from a business standpoint, we've had about like 13 or 14 companies try to rip us off, which is adorable. We live in an immensely talented area when it comes to marketing and sales, and there's a lot of talented people here. And so just building teams has been a very insightful process, to say the least bit. You realize when you're trying to make an impact on society and solve complex problems, you need a team to do that. And we've been very fortunate enough to recruit top level talent and just be able to bounce questions off like so many talented entrepreneurs that live here, that have been on your show already. Like you talked about Kyle David, he's a great one. Very, very thankful to live in the lovely Sunshine State and be on this side of the bridge in lovely St. Petersburg, Florida. That has definitely made a profound impact on my life over these last couple of years.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to live. Amazing people that we have here. I'm so glad that we know each other, that, you know, I've known you for a while, and I've seen the growth of Into the Wild. Was at some of the early podcast in persons that you did.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Right. That's right.
I was there,
Yeah, that's right. You've always been a supporter, brother. You always have, man. And like, I respect that so much because being part of a network, that's really what you're here to do. And I think everybody can relate to the fact that entrepreneurship is hard. Building a business is hard. And like, we should all be able to support each other. So I appreciate you in inviting me on to this. And I'm happy to help you in any way that I can, man, moving forward.
Outstanding. Kiley Lynch, thank you for being on the podcast today.
My pleasure, brother.